Does everything have a bright side to it? Of course. Doesn't always outweigh the negatives, but everything has a bright side to it. This makes happiness a choice. And here we say that the discipline of being happy is the ultimate discipline. With that said, welcome to the Ultimate Discipline Podcast, where we meet with people who are practitioners of this exact discipline, and we hear their cool stories of cultivating happiness through challenges in their life. I am your host, Sean Greenspan. Let's get to it. What's happening, guys? Welcome to the next episode of the Happiness Discipline. By the time this comes out, I think this is going to be episode 80-something? 80. I started 2 years ago. That's cool. You got no pressure, but you got to be the best guest, Mike.
Yeah, let's go.
Guys, Mike, this is one I'm really excited about. Mike, someone I don't really know that well. We have some similar friends, and I heard about this guy that lifts things super heavy with one arm up like this, and then I bumped into you at a couple ultramarathons, and wait, I thought he was a lifter, and he's super fit and can run far too. Something I aspire to. And then honestly, what caught my eye, Mike, was you had a post recently announcing your partnership with Organifi, which their stuff's awesome, by the way. I have a green juice right over there. And you were kind of saying you were it was giving an introduction to who you are. I do this, and Organifi is my overall partner to keep me healthy. A couple things caught my eye. So we know a lot of people that run really far and lift really heavy and sweat a lot and sit in cold water. But you had some things where you're I like to test my mind. And you talked about 4 days without eating and some things like that. And I reached out right then. I was like, Mike, I know we saw each other at, Running Man recently. Dude, let's hop on the pod. And I'm really excited to just dive in and get to know you a little more. And really what I want to focus on is the why. Why are you doing these things? Because everyone generally has a very interesting why they run 100 miles. And Mike, was Javelina your first 100?
The first 100 I ever completed was Javelina. Yep.
Awesome. Well, congrats on that. Mike just completed the Javelina 100. And Mike, man, I'd love for you to just give a quick intro on yourself. And then we could drop right in.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much, Sean, for having me on the podcast. I've been a coach my whole life. Started off doing strength and conditioning, and was pretty fortunate to garner an internship with the New York Jets at my college in upstate New York, and then went out to LA and started helping guys with the NFL Combine. And so early on, I was fortunate to work with some of the best athletes in the world, but I've always been interested in what makes people happy and healthy. And so that's taken me through various disciplines. I think similar to you, Sean, I like exploring myself mentally, physically, emotionally, all the different aspects. And so I've done a lot of cool things that I think are cool. That's why I like to do them. Lifting weights, paddling across, the ocean, running 100-mile races, and doing some fasts. So yeah, I then share all of that work with others in my performance coaching business, where it's less about the flashy stuff on the outside. That's cool. That stuff is great, but it's really about how we feel about ourselves and that internal practice that affects us day to day.
Yeah. Wow. I'm excited to drop in, but you just reminded me of the real thing that caught my attention. In that clip, you said was paddle boarding across the ocean?
Yeah, so it was from the Bahamas to Florida. So not maybe across the whole ocean, but from one continent to another. One country to another.
Yeah. Dude, let me hear about this. How long was this? Yeah.
So it's an 82-mile paddle, and I got introduced to it from my buddy Bo, who owns V23 Athletics, a gym down in Denver that I love to work out at. He sent it over to me and wanted to originally do it as a 6-man ocean canoe outrigger. And I looked at the website and I saw that it had individual paddleboard option, and I was like, Bo, let's paddle this. I love paddleboarding. I used to race. Won an international race in Costa Rica one time. Wasn't the hugest race, but it was kind of fun to train and paddle down there. And so it was great. We signed up for it. We trained a bunch out in the winter here in Colorado. We did a trip out to San Diego to get some more time on the water, and then went out to Bimini in the Bahamas and raced with this organization called Crossing for CR, for Cystic Fibrosis, CF, sorry, and is a great organization. Raised a bunch of money. I think our team raised over like $30,000 for this organization. And we start the race at midnight. You can pick kind of your theme song, and if you think about it, you have like, I think there's 100 people that did this crossing. So it's in the middle of the night. You're lined up on the beach. Your support boat is like way out in the distance with just like a red light, and they play you your theme song. I think ours was like "Kickstart My Heart" by Molly Crew, or no, excuse me. Gosh, yes, that is Molly Crew. Sorry. And then we just jump on our boards, paddle out to the boat, and then we're just paddling in the pitch black, like kind of one behind
Yeah.
another behind this boat until the sun starts to come up. Sun starts to rise. It's really cool. I think you probably have seen a sunrise from pitch black before, but all of a sudden you start to just see things start to get a little bit lighter, and your body really naturally accumulates to the light. And by the time the sun actually rises, you've already thought it's been day, but the water was really calm in the morning. So it was hard to tell between the ocean, endless ocean out in the distance, and then the sky. And then when that sunrise came through, it was like the most spectacular, vivid sunrise I've ever seen in my life. Like, just see no one out there except a few people that I'm with. And when you just turn your head in the direction, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
A bunch of sharks. Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool experience. I highly, highly recommend it for anyone that's loves the ocean, and you can do it as a relay. You don't have to paddle it all on your own. But it took us about 16, 17 hours.
Phew, dude, that's cool. And um, so you mentioned it's one of the most vivid sunrises of your life, right? Well, let me ask you, why do you think that is?
I think it's most unique. Like, I've never been in the middle of the ocean surrounded by nothing, and then just that visual. I've never had that before.
Yeah, dude, that I think you're right. Right, most unique. What came to my mind was also potentially um, the mindset that you were in. Right, like you were 6 hours, 7 hours. I don't know exactly when the sunrise was into a long, crazy endurance event, right?
Hmm.
And you have this memory, like I saw, dude. You sat up a little straighter, like your energy lifted, like I saw you like reliving it, in your head, and I, that's kind of one of the reasons that I get attracted to these things that are even whether it's like your micro daily challenges of hitting the gym, you're like, your like mini adventures or like the big thing, like the actual race. But I do it because it creates memories and it creates like visceral memories that I can feel and like I can come back to. And, it just, you get so in the zone. I mean, hey, like, on top of that, you got to see the coolest sunrise of your life, right? The sun rises every single day. And that was the coolest, right? It's not a coincidence that the coolest happened to be at a time that you put yourself out in a challenging position. Um, and I think a lot of times people focus on like I don't want to say they're negative, but they focus on the negatives. Oh, why would you do that, right? Like you're probably like cold overnight on the ocean. Like you're probably exhausted. You're not sleeping. Like there's no real point. It's not like you're trying to like escape the Bahamas and get to Florida or whatever. And a lot of people focus on that. And I think we're lucky, Mike, that we roll in circles where we might have a lot of people that actually see the benefits of these things. And it's one of my missions with this podcast is to find people like you and make sure we can spread your message because um, there's so much that can be done. I'm sure you didn't think that was something you were capable of at one point, and then you find out that you're able to do it, and it sounds like you did pretty well too.
Yeah, and I'm encouraging everyone listening to do it. There's different levels to things, right? And so we all have certain skill sets, and then there are various challenges available, some more than others, right? It's not a common challenge to paddle 82 miles in the ocean across the Gulf Stream, but
Yep.
it is something that's available. And the more creative you can get and the better research you can do. Or if you listen to this podcast, now you know about this thing. You can Google crossing for CF, and you'll see this race that you can sign up for and get some buddies and book a flight down to the Bahamas and make it happen. It
Yeah.
it's like it takes energy, it takes belief, and also just takes hearing someone that's done it that tells you like you can do it too. Like there's nothing really special about me and the reason that I can paddle across the ocean. There were tons of different people out there, and Sean, I bet you can speak to the long endurance races. You see people from all walks of life doing ultra marathons, and it's beyond inspiring.
It it is. And something that I like about like fitness and endurance events specifically is they're basically doable for everybody. Some people could do it off 6 weeks training. Some people will need 6 years, but they're basically doable for everyone. And it teaches you a lot of transferable skills. Like when I signed up for my 100 miler, I was in no way, shape, or form capable of doing a 100 miler. That's why I signed up for one way out a year ahead. I was like, I'll sign up now, so it's going to force me to train. And I thought, well, if I could run 50 miles 4 to 6 weeks before, I'll feel confident, you know? So I signed up for a 50 mile or 6 weeks before. I was like, let me get like, a 50K way before, 6 months before, to show that like, I'm there, and then just hold that for a while and then really ramp up the training at the end. So I signed that, and I got that idea just by, like you said, putting energy into it. Don't just honestly 10 minutes of research, right? I was going to say research, but that's too patting me on the back. It was 10 minutes of like research, and I texted two people that have done it before. And then all of a sudden now you have a realistic plan to achieving things. Um, and you said something about all walks of life. I want to tell you about my first 50-mile finish. I was so I had an interesting start to my ultra running career, if we could call it that. To ultra running. COVID hit. I was a basketball player, not a runner. Playing basketball 7 days a week, every day for the last 15 years. Like no, like every single day.
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit, all the gyms closed, and I just called my buddy Matt. I've had Matt Choi on the podcast before. I called Matt. And I was like, "Yo, like we gotta do something, man. Let's run or whatever." So we just said, "Let's run 200 miles this month." I did that. My body felt like it broke down. Like my foot hurt, like everything. And I was like, "Okay, maybe I should ramp this up." But then when we were doing it, our buddy Jason was doing it with us, and Jason goes, I'm signing up for this 100 miler out of nowhere. I didn't even know 100 milers were a thing. Like most people don't know their races. And he goes, and I need someone to pace me. And he's like, I'm reading the details. It says the pacer can start at mile 50. So just do the last 50 with me. And I was like super ignorant to this. And I was like, you're going to go slow, right? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, And I was like, we can have hiking poles. He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, we'll get it done. So we're in the dark in Utah at the Buffalo Run, mile 77. I'm 27 miles in, 10,000 vert. Like it's 20 degrees and sleeting. And dude, I swear I have a broken foot, right? Like I'm like, Jason, I can't do this. And it's like this figure eight. So we're back at the car too. I was like, I basically quit on him, right? And I went straight to the ER, and I was like, I need you to like x-ray my foot. Like my foot has been broken for 20 miles. I've just been scared to tell my friend. I get an MRI. I would like to think that I have pretty high pain tolerance, not a hypochondriac, and there's nothing wrong with my foot. A week later, I was running. Right, it hurt for like another 6-7 days, and a week later, I was running. So I started to realize, like, okay, like about phantom pains and stuff like this. I made a commitment to myself. I'm going to run 100 miles, and I got that. Then I paced Jason like 3 months later. Really did well. So I was like, I'm just going to sign up for a 50 miler now, and I'm running. And so at this point, I'm sorry, 6 months later. So at this point, I've been running a good bit for 6 months, and I know I'm generally fit. And I come across the finish line at this 50 miler, and I'm coming up to this finish line, and they tell me they're like, you're just over 8 hours. You're in 10th place. Go, go, go. And it was like they wanted me to try to like beat 8 hours or something, which I wasn't going to be able to do. And I'm feeling good about myself, right? I was like top 10. There was hundreds of people there. And I kick it into what was my high gear, the last full mile was straight, right? And this dude comes behind me, not does not have a fitness physique. Not only that, he had like, we have like tight like salmon like running vest on that are like glued to our bodies, like whatever. We got the 10,000 shorts, like we're like looking the part. This dude was wearing like basketball shorts, a backpack with straps that were like flapping. He was like a mess, dude. Like water, like not even sweat, like water and like whatever he drank on his shirt. And he comes by, and again, he was 40 pounds overweight, breathing out of his mouth, no control, and goes past me. And ultra running is not like a competitive sport, but I was like, I'm at least gonna finish with this guy. So I go to kick it, and I just could not catch him to save my life, right? And I finish, and he finishes ahead of me. And when I finish, I like, I kind of like, like bend over and like act like I'm tired. He acts like he got shot, like he was dead, right? And he was down there like dry heaving, vomiting, everything for like an hour. And I waited for him. I drove myself to this 50 miler and was just going to drive back. I was there alone. I waited for him. And at the end, I said, man, your finish was the most inspiring thing I've like ever seen in my life. Um, and I don't want to be rude, but like I think if people like saw us next to each other, most people would bet on me. And I was like, and I want to know like what goes on in your mind because I've never seen someone finish like that. And he told me, he goes, I would have rather died on the course than not given it 100% effort.
Hmm.
And like he had the look in his eye, and he was completely serious. Like he's like they would have had to like remove me from the course for me like because I was just sending it. And dude, I still get chills like thinking about it. And he's like this guy, I wish I knew his name. I've had his head in my or his face in my head for 30 years. He's the reason that like I do a lot of these things. Was like he had this like calming presence after in this piece that I was like, this is why people do these things, man.
Totally. There's like a spiritual aspect to it, especially out in nature. You're by yourself. There's that repetitive pitter patter of your feet. That's an incredible story. You just gotta name this guy. Gotta come up with that name. He's your Miyagi.
He's my Miyagi. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh man, he's just like my visionary. But yeah, man, I want to hear about this Javelina 100 you did. How was the experience overall? Were you like with pretty smooth sailing, or did you get some low points?
It went pretty well. So I wasn't able to complete the Leadville, and then after that, I was pretty bummed because I felt like it was more of a strategic error. I felt like I was fit enough, but I wanted to sign up for another race to try to complete 100. And Javelina was available in like 6 weeks or 8 weeks after 2 months. And so I signed up, but I was 405th on the wait list. And so I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get into this. Like, that seems like a lot to me. And so my training kind of like what I wasn't as motivated to train because I wasn't sure if I was going to do this race or not. I also just ran 100K in Leadville. And so I was, a little fatigued from that. And just from like not getting it, like mentally, that was fatiguing for me. And then, so I went into Javelina. I got into the race 18 days before it actually started. And I had only been logging like 20 miles a week. So I did do the 100K in Leadville, but then like not a lot of running. And
And how
so
much time are we talking about?
that's 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. And then 18 days before, I was like, cool. I mean, I saw you in Running Man the week before. That was probably the longest I ran since Leadville, like a 13-mile run. And so, um, I was just gonna go and give my best, not go out too crazy. The elevation's like half of what was at Leadville. It's not at altitude, but it has a lot of heat, and so just wanted to make sure that I could maintain, like, do well with the heat. And it's a cool race. It's like a 5-mile loop, and you come back to one huge aid station that your crew can be at. And so for Leadville, I pulled out all the stops. Like I've got an Airbnb for a week. I got my mom out there, my dad, my family, my girlfriend, like my friends pacing me. They didn't even get to pace me. So I was like, I don't want to ask anyone to come to this one. I just want to do this one. And I wanted Kelly to come, my partner. So Kelly came out, she crewed me. And Yeah, it went pretty well. I mean, I was running until like mile 70 or so, and then my feet kind of were just didn't want to really run anymore. And so I was kind of like jogging, putzing from then on. But yeah, it felt great. It felt great. It felt great to finish and motivating to know that I could just like be awake and moving for longer than a day. I had I had diagnosed with a sleeping disorder when I was younger, and so I always kind of worried like, am I going to be able to like be awake? I don't think I've ever stayed awake that long in my life. Like, I don't really party or stay out late. I've never really done that. I'm not
Yeah.
like a all nighter type of guy, and so I think it'd be harder for me to just like be awake at home, like watching movies all night, than it was to run.
Dude, I can relate with you on that. Like that was the scariest thing for me, like staying awake. So one of the hundreds my buddy did started at 6 p.m.
Ooh,
Talk that is like brutal because d- no one you're not going to sleep all day leading up to it. That's just, you're just not going to be able to do it. So you're basically up for 48 hours like if you're going to finish. That's a gnarly one, but that's what I was most scared of during mine was the running. I'm sorry, there was the sleeping actually. What'd you think about that? There's some of these longer 200-mile races that and then your pace slows, so you're talking 3-4 days. Do those intrigue you at all?
a little bit, yeah, for sure. Like, so after I finished Javelina, I was pretty tired, but was able to like sprint through the finish. Like, it has this like quarter-mile lap that you do each loop, and so the final one you're going down to the finish line, and I was just like booking it. Like, Thunderstruck came over the loudspeakers like right when I pulled into the corral, and that song I just love like since I was 14, like playing high school football, and so I was just like in my little 14-year-old head, just like flying through, and like when it hit like the main part of the song, I just crossed the finish line, and so that was a cool experience. Um,
Dude,
but then I got back to the car, and then we drove to get some food, and then I took like a little 20-minute nap as we're waiting for the food, and then I was good. Then I dropped Kelly back off at the airport and drove like 3 hours by myself up to Sedona, and then was like awake and feeling okay to drive for like a decent amount of time. So I think that 20-minute nap did a lot. I don't know how long I could have carried that energy for, but it was it was yeah, definitely made me curious about the longer races.
yeah, that's interesting. You know, when we look at these challenges, there's always a balance of like, am I crazy or is this just a good challenge? And then there's also the other side, like is that like a limiting belief or should I really not do it? Because I've stayed away from anything over 100 because I don't know for some reason like I'd rather I don't know like being like sleepy tired like that doesn't sound fun to me to fight through that, but at the same time that is just another challenge and it's probably a fear that should be faced in my and I guess it's me not facing that would be incongruent with like my other lines of thinking, which is starting to get me to think like I'm just having like a limiting belief or something like that. That's like you should probably sign up for one of these longer runs. At that point they're kind of like walks, but
Right, yeah, longer
yeah.
run walk. I think
Oh,
for me, it's like I would love, I think, to do one of those, but it is a lot of time. Like it's a lot of time dedicated to training, and then the recovery aspect. Like after a 3 or 4 day race, like a 200 miler, there's a long recovery time for your nervous system and for your body and all these different aspects. Like I didn't feel physically great after my 100 for like a month or like 5 weeks. And that's not a terrible thing, but it's an investment for that one day.
or I guess in this case one
Or,
event, right?
yeah. Or like 3 days, probably be more of a more of a journey. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely something that's on my radar. I'm signing up for Lead Man this year, which is all of the Leadville race series. So you do like the trail marathon, then the 50-mile bike, 50-mile run, and then those are back-to-back weekends, and then the 100-mile bike, 10K, and then 100-mile run back-to-back weekend.
Yep. I know a couple of people. I was talking to someone this morning, Matt Johnson. I don't know if you know him. But
I just I just convinced him to do it actually.
I was on the phone with him today, um,
Hmm.
and he said he's gonna do it. I think I'm gonna do Leadman or Leadville next year. Just the run.
Heck yeah.
Let me ask this: how big was Javelino? Like, was it a big production like Leadville or no?
It had more people than Leadville.
Interesting. Have you ever done ultra that had like that was like very very small?
I have, yeah, like very small, like maybe 40 people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Most of my ultras have been like that. I kind
Hmm.
of like that. That is definitely my preferred size. Um,
Hmm.
that is honestly the only thing that's keeping me from Leadville is it feels like a lot of it's not about the run. And
Hmm.
maybe that's just because I haven't done it, right? I've only had the spectator view, right? But there's something about it, man. The 50 miler I ran in Wisconsin that I was telling you about, there was like a two like metal prong sign in the ground like this big that said start finish, and like when you finished, I'm not exaggerating, there was a dude with a hand stop clock that had my time on it, and as I crossed the line, this dude was like 900 years old. He's been an ultra runner in the Wisconsin community. He shook my hand. He's like, good job, son, and he handed me like a little patch. I just walked away. And
Yeah.
like something about that was like gritty, like I enjoyed that.
Yeah, the Leadville has like aspects of that as well. Obviously, it's owned by Lifetime now, so it's a huge production, and you've been there, and so
Yeah.
you see that aspect. But it also is 100 miles, so you can't like I don't know, like take your pictures through the whole thing. Like you got to run it, like you got to move through the whole race. But it was founded by Ken Kubler, and he's a very like mountain, like Colorado, like purebred mountain man. And so it's cool when he gives his little speeches on like, grits, guts, determination, push through adversity. And Leadville's just a cool town too, because it's all built on that. So the energy is like I know I felt it a lot, especially in the 50 miler that I did at Leadville. Like there's this guy who was running in cargo shorts with Poland Spring water bottles in his back pocket.
Dude, that's what I like to see.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's your new race kit right there.
that the Poland Spring. Dude, I've been saying for years I want a Poland Spring sponsorship. I'm like, you dude, spring water? Like that'd be the best type of sponsorship.
Hmm. Heck yeah.
That, that'd be too funny. Um I want to hear you've done a 4-day fast before?
Yes.
I want to hear about that. What was the reason behind it? Was it a physical thing, a mental thing, and maybe a little bit about like, just your experience.
Yeah. So I am really into nature and the way that it can be used as a method of like learning about the human psyche. And
Mm,
so I really got into rites of passages that have been done in lots of different cultural communities throughout forever. And I have some Native American blood in my family, and I've related to some of that heritage. And I reached out to a wilderness guide who leads quests like vision quests, wilderness quests, as rites of passage for people, and specifically men, where you bring men out on the land, fast for 4 days, 3 nights, and basically call, cry, pray for a vision for your life, from something that, well, the language he would use and I would use would be spirit, God, universe, energy, and so I believe that we all have souls, and then spirit is the thing around that we can connect with. And so I was um, doing my fast as part of my quest, where if you think of like a four directions, like the guidelines, you have northwest, north, south, east, and west, and the east would be like a baby or a grandfather energy. The south is very egocentric, like an adolescent, like a me, kind of like I think what you're describing with a Leadville or a big race. It can be kind of like egocentric in a lot of ways. Our society lives in that type of space. The West is like the dark aspects of our soul. Like it's even portrayed in media like Wicked Witch of the West. And then the North is our true North. So our true vision, what we're meant to bring into, this world and how we can serve others through our purpose. And so I feel like there's a lot of people in this world, especially in this country, that live in a false North where they are an adult in terms of their age and they might have like a fancy home or cool cars or stuff, but they also live in a really southern existence mentally and emotionally. And it's because they haven't gone through the West, like through the shadow aspects, through that their inner dark demons, their traumas, all those types of things. And so the quest is an opportunity to work with a guide and a coach in order to go out on a fast where you're in the middle of a pure wilderness. You're not seeing anyone else. Ideally, you're not seeing any trails or anything else. And you don't eat any food. You just drink water. And you only have a backpack with tarp and some warm clothes, no books, phones, cameras, like no electronics, nothing to distract you from just being in that place. And so that was when I did my fast, was out in the mountains, 11,000 feet in New Mexico.
Wow. Good for you to just sign up for that and do it, man. That's really cool. Um, I r- I heard like throughout like an underlying connection between kind of just like your trust in like almost like nature, right? Like your natural healing process. Um, you know, I sometimes I think sometimes I think just being in tune, when I say in tune, like, on the same vibe as like nature is really important, right? Like, and that's the real reason I got into like ultras was I wanted like an excuse to run in the woods more. It's like just be out there more. But I kind of I wanted to ask, you called like technology a distraction. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So technology is a tool. And when you have a certain goal, that tool can be useful or it can be a distraction. And so for me, my goal was to attune to myself and my own soul as deep as possible. And I didn't want to ingest anything, like not even food. And so I didn't want to take in any external stimulus like technology that could basically block the signal from my own truth. And so I believe nature is the most honest place. I think you do too. And I think a lot of people really like being in nature when they feel safe. Like no one steps their toes in the sand at the beach, looks out and is like, this sucks. Like we're all like, this feels good. Like this, there's something calming about it. It's why people gravitate towards the coasts and towards the ocean in that way. The mountains can be a little bit more mysterious because you just can't see through them as clearly. But when we're looking for our own truth, I think going into the most honest, truthful place, which is wilderness, is a great aspect. And technology really can cloud that signal if your goal is to find your own truth.
Yeah, I think there's two there's two really important things there. I don't think a lot of times people realize the distraction that it is, right? Um, maybe they do and they just shove it down and keep it in their subconscious, right? But I I'll tell you something that is maybe a little too. I hope my dad doesn't mind me sharing. Let me just say that. But I'm back home. I'm not always back home, right? And the last time I was back home was this time last year. I finished my 100 miler. It was 100 miles south of here. Drove home, spent some time with my family while I just recouped, whatever. And he keeps the TV on, big 65-inch TV, loud volume all day. The second he walks in, turns it on, and we kind of like butt heads about it. Like I don't watch TV like at all. And my thing is, I'm like, dude, it's like you're scrolling on Instagram while we're talking. Is like what I always describe to him. Um, and I think, and he lives alone. He uses it like TV can keep us company, right? Can keep us out of our own mind, stuff like that. Um, so I said, for me, will you turn the TV off? Like I just finished the 100 mile. I just want like some peace. Like let's just talk, whatever. He turned it off, and within 3 minutes, I was looking at the call behind him. He brought something up right away when the TV was off that like he had the time to think about, and it brought him to tears within 3 minutes. Like not, I'm not like those 180 seconds. And just like kind of like happy tears. He was just like, man, like it just made him feel. It allowed him to feel. He was like, man, I just saw you like it was raining, you kept running, and like I was so proud of you, and I'm happy to be there. And like just like a great father son moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, imagine if we had the TV off all the time, right? Like imagine how many father son moments we would have. Fast forward, I haven't been home all year. And I stayed at his house for a week, and I left yesterday. And I wasn't gonna be like annoying about it, but it was our last night, and I know I'm actually moving to Denver in like 2 weeks, so I'll holler at
Oh,
you.
nice.
But like I was like, I don't know if I live nomadically, so I'm moving there for a few months, and then I'll be on my way. But I I was like, Dad, it's our last night. Like, let's turn the TV off for dinner, right? And we flipped the TV off, and dude, the exact same thing happened. He goes, man, Sean, like he goes, it's like a weird thing when, he's like, you're almost 30, like I'm in my 60s. He's like, there's a time where like the kid starts to kind of like become the parent. And he goes, I feel like we're there, and like makes me feel old. And like and he just was like, I just want good time with you, just good one-on-one time with you. We don't get enough one-on-one time, right? And like we both got like choked up. It was like a good like father son moment. And again, I was like, dude, I was like, he might have beat his 180 second record this time. And it just made me think. And look, I'm on here a lot, right? And I make an excuse because I'm like, oh, it's for work, right? I'm doing shit, but like it is a true distraction. And now I'm getting up on my soapbox a little bit, but if I was to push something on people, I would say to a lot of people maybe think about it, oh, like the phone's not a bad thing. No, it's not a bad thing. But if you're on it, other things aren't happening. And it's probably not as good as those other things, right? Or the phone, um, anything that actually takes you out of quiet time. Even books. I've found that like reading's amazing, but like I think it's more important to make sure I have my checklist of things to do throughout the day. Meditate's one of them, and meditate's on a higher priority than reading because like you just need your quiet time with nothing before anything else, before your, in my opinion, before your workout, before your food, your emails, no matter what. And I don't think a lot of times we like think about the trade-off, right? Like people, dude, someone today, I took a hike with someone this morning, and they said, they're like, I always throw my TV on at night. It's like, dude, for how long? He's like, an hour. I was like, if you meditated for that hour, you'd be like, the Dalai Lama, man. Like,
Totally. Yeah, I think it all comes down to what do you value, and are your actions aligned with your values? And I think a lot of people would say that they value, like your dad, like he values that one-on-one time with you more than he values that TV. But it's maybe harder for him to stay in that space because it feels vulnerable, and so he'll lean on the TV because it feels a little more comforting. But over time, that'll hurt his the hurt is like personal integrity because he knows that he wants this one thing, but his actions are going against his true desire. And so it'll hurt his confidence. And I think a lot of people, at least that I work with in my coaching business, struggle with that. They want a deeper relationship, but they watch porn. They want to have more friendships, but they just watch other people having friends on the TV show Friends. Like they want they want to read about amazing things. They want to do amazing things in their life, but they're too busy reading about other people doing amazing things. And so like I really encourage folks to think what are the actions that you truly value, and then audit yourself. Look at your time and look at the things that are in your life, and is your time allocated appropriately to what you say you value? And if it's not, let's try to close that gap. I've gotten a lot of people to get rid of their TVs. I mean, I don't own a TV. A lot of people get rid of their video game system. There's a lot of it's a lot of time sucks, but it's really pulling away from you. And it's also really hurting the people that you're closest with, like your dad and you as an example. And so I'm sure he doesn't want to hurt you and doesn't necessarily view it that way. But, I live with a 7-year-old boy. And when he comes home, I do my absolute best to keep everything away. So I'm fully present with him because he doesn't have a phone and he won't for a really long time. But if I just like respond to an email while we're like playing catch, it's so rude and like, it affects him so much more because he doesn't understand why I would do that. He's like, "What are you doing? We're having fun, we're playing, and you're just stopping it for this other thing that tells me that that's more important than me." And so I think that's maybe a more extreme example, but we all feel that if someone pulls out their phone with us, and
Dude.
we just give excuses to it. And it's just really not okay if we want to have deep, authentic, genuine relationships.
Yeah, man. We do all feel that, and we all do that to other people. And I've been trying to be very, very conscious of it. So much so that, when you talk about getting rid of TVs and video games, people think that's maybe like crude. No, it's setting up your environment for success. And like little things like, so it's really important to me to start my day strong, right? And when I'm living alone, that's easy. When I was at like my dad's, like I'd get up, hit the gym, come back, and that's when he'd sit and kind of like watch the news and like get his day going. And he has a small spot, so like I just had to go to the coffee shop because I knew if I was there, my options are, I could just choose to spend that morning with him, but I was trying to start my day with like my structure that I like, um, and I knew like the only option that would have worked there was like looking at him, but sending emails and like doing this thing, and that's just you're not doing either, and you're making him feel devalued. Um, and it is important thing for us to all be aware of, like are you able to give someone the time of day, and saying no is important too. It's funny, me and my girlfriend are separate for 10 days right now, and she calls me the other day, and I want to talk to her about something. I've got talking about all day running, or talking about Running Man, Jesse Itzler. I bought his big ass calendar. We're going through the big ass calendar club. I don't know if you know what that is, planning out your year. And if you're in a relationship, you got to plan out your year with someone. So we got one for Emma too. And I was excited that me and Emma, I was like, like a dork. I said, Emma, let's put a 30-minute meeting on the books and let's map out our year, at least like high level. And we started talking, and like a little bit, like she was telling me about like what she did that day, but we weren't getting into depth. It wasn't like how she was feeling or anything like that. And I was like, hey Emma, like I don't want to be rude, but like I want to get into like what are your dreams for next year, and I want to tell you about my dreams for next year, and like let's get them on this thing. So it's like it's not that I didn't want to hear about her day, especially if I was like, look, if you want to talk about that or you have something to share, do it. But like you were talking about prioritizing your time, like if we spend 30 minutes and dream together and map out and design 2024, that's a conversation we're never going to forget. That's like what we came here to do. And we did it, and like I didn't know what she ate for lunch, or she didn't know like what I did at the gym. It's okay. It's like, I think a lot of times we look at those shallow like conversations like as ways to like fill like loneliness like needs, but it's like in reality like we created a 2024 vision and plan that like we're vibing on now. And um yeah, it's cool because I started realizing like like I would justify that. I'd call a family member and say that was like a good use of time, but we're keeping it like maybe shallow, or just checking in on each other. It's like I do think it's just so important to like audit your time. And um I appreciate you sharing that. Um, Mike, I know we gotta wrap this up, but I want to ask you one thing, and that is, what's your big goal for 2024, man? I know you got something cooking.
Yeah, I am. I'll kind of give you two goals. One would be the Lead Man, right? That
Yep.
race series. I didn't complete that last year. And so doubling down on it by just doing all the races. So that'll be a good kind of goal for me that will infiltrate a bunch of other aspects in my life because it forces me to be much more diligent about my time. And
Hmm.
the way that I am spending that most valuable resource. And then the other is my coaching business. I'm going to be doing a lot more in person events, online workshops. I'm really leaning into community super hard in 2024. I'm stoked to be leading this full circle event this upcoming weekend. And so that'll be a great kind of kickstart before the new year. But big community events is what I'm into in 2024.
Nice. I mean, we'll have to keep chatting because link up with Bobby. We'll do tons of full circle events. I gotta say, every minute I see someone signing up for it, so I think you guys will have a good turnout this weekend.
Yeah,
Mike,
yeah.
it has been a pleasure to have you, man. I appreciate it. I'm excited to hear how this weekend goes. Excited to be in your city in a couple weeks. And I just want to thank you. We talked about time at the end, and to make time for this is really important. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. This was fun.
Hey, thank you for watching today's episode. If you got something out of this, it would mean so much if you could just take a second and give us a rating on whatever platform you're watching it on. And it would mean so much to the world if you could just find one person that you think this message resonates with and you could share that with them. Thank you so much for your support. Looking forward to share the next episode with you.